extra special episode as we do a deep dive into all things JFK files with the man who knows it better than anyone, Roger Stone. So for the entire episode, we will take you behind the scenes of the assassination that has captivated the country for decades. Recent documents released by the Trump administration are a welcome sign for transparency, but there is still many questions left to answer. So please remember to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss these major episodes, and be sure to support our sponsors who make this show possible. Free speech is under attack, but Rumble refuses to back down. We have always believed in empowering independent voices, and now Rumble is taking that issue to the next level. We are excited to offer Rumble Premium, a completely ad-free experience with exclusive benefits for viewers and creators. And it's more than a subscription. It is a stand for free speech. Your voice matters. So please join Rumble Premium today. And for a limited time, you can get $10 off an annual plan using promo code KG10. So just visit rumble.com/premium/KG10 and claim your discount today. Again, that's rumble.com/premium/KG10. And joining me now, host of the Stone Zone on WABC Radio and on Rumble, author of The Man Who Killed Kennedy, The Case Against LBJ, Roger Stone. Thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Kimberly, it's always great to be with you, and you look great as always.
Thank you so much. I was excited about having you on today. You know, we recently had new documents released, okay? What actually was new? Why had it been blocked before? And do we know, what other possible documents might be out there?
Well, as you know, the Congress passed a law in 1994, which mandated that all the documents pertaining to the assassination of President Kennedy were supposed to be released in 2017. President Trump, I think, thought long and hard about that. In the end, he released about 80% of the material that had been held back for decades by the government. And a lot of what he released was extraordinarily different. Interesting. For example, we found a memo from FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover to President Lyndon Johnson, telling him that the KGB, the Russian intelligence, had conducted their own independent investigation, and they had determined that, well, Lyndon Johnson was behind the plot to kill President John Kennedy. We saw the IRS had held back the 1099 tax form for Lee Harvey Oswald, who had actually been on the payroll of the FBI. But in the end, and President Trump has said this, it was FBI Director Mike Pompeo who persuaded the president to hold back about 20% of the documents. I think it's kind of obvious now that the president decided and said repeatedly in the most recent campaign that he's going to release everything. And to the extent that it's possible, I think he has done so. He specifically directed the release of those documents that are in the JFK assassination document archive. Whether or not there are additional documents, say at the State Department, the Defense Department, the FBI, the CIA, the IRS, well, we don't know. But of the documents we have seen, which have been interesting to say the least, I think they have established the CIA's much earlier knowledge of Oswald, and they seem to indicate a very specific role of that agency in Kennedy's murder. None of this, by the way, is inconsistent with what I have said. In other words, I still believe that President Kennedy was killed as a result of a plot that involved the Central Intelligence Agency, whose motive was what they believe was his bungling of the Bay of Pigs invasion and the Cuban Missile Crisis, organized crime, who felt that they had been double-crossed. They had provided both financing and arm twisting for John Kennedy's election in 1960, but when Robert Kennedy Sr. became Attorney General, he double-crossed the mob and sought to deport two of the biggest gangsters of the time, Carlos Marcello and Sante Traficante, and Big Texas Oil, who were very upset about the repeal of the oil depletion allowance. So nothing I have seen so far changes my basic thesis, which is that you had all these entities, the CIA, organized crime, Big Texas Oil, and others, who each had their own individual motive. But Kimberly, Lyndon Johnson's motive was the greatest. He was under investigation in the Billy Sal Estes investigation, in the Bobby Baker investigation, two giant scandal investigations of the 1960s. Robert Kennedy, the president's brother, the attorney general, had begun telling people that Johnson would be dropped from the 64 ticket, would be prosecuted. That's why I still believe that he had both the greatest immediate interest and the greatest influence with all of these other entities, CIA, organized crime, and so on.
Well, the commission's 888-page report concluded that Oswald acted alone, firing from the sixth floor of the Texas School Book Depository. What are the top reasons why that story doesn't add up?
Well, first and foremost, if Lee Harvey Oswald really shot a $26 World War II vintage carbine, Army carbine, why does he have no powder burns on his chest or his arms or his hands? That makes no sense at all. Secondarily, there are fingerprints found on the sixth floor of the Texas School Book Depository building that belonged to a man named Malcolm Wallace. Malcolm Wallace was convicted of first-degree murder in Texas in 1951. That's why the Texas Rangers have his fingerprints. He is in the employ of Lyndon Johnson. He is working at that time in a patronage job in the agriculture department. By the way, he is a crack shot. He is rated in the Marine Corps as a far better shot than Oswald. 6 different people see Malcolm Wallace, or a man who meets his physical description, heavy set, balding, with glasses, in the window of the sixth floor of the Texas School Book Depository building. And then very recently, an audio tape was released by the grandson of Billy Sal Estes. Billy Sal Estes was a flamboyant Texas wheeler dealer, con man. He was getting these multi-million-dollar agricultural contracts from the federal government. He was kicking back to Lyndon Johnson. He taped an audio tape with Cliff Carter, the executive director of the Democrat National Committee under LBJ, LBJ's right-hand man, and they openly discussed the fact that Malcolm Wallace was the shooter from the sixth floor of the Texas School Book Depository building. Interestingly enough, a man named James Carr, just a Texas citizen, sees a man meeting the physical description of Wallace, running out of the Texas School Book Depository building, getting in a Nash Rambler, being driven away by a dark-complected man. And he makes the mistake, as it turns out, of reporting this to the Dallas police. There are no less than 6 individual attempts on Mr. Carr's life. He finally leaves Dallas, relocates to the Middle West, goes into hiding because so many people tried to kill him.
So crazy.
There's also a timing problem. Oswald, we're led to believe, who's not a very good shot, according to the documents that were released this week, shoots Kennedy 3 times, all from behind, hides the rifle, runs down 4 flights of stairs, wooden stairs. A woman by the name of Victoria Smith, by the way, is on the wooden staircase between the 6th and 2nd floor, where Oswald is seen casually eating his lunch only minutes after Kennedy has been shot. She neither sees nor hears Oswald on this wooden staircase. It is physically impossible, timing-wise, for Oswald to have fired that shot. And then, as you probably know, Paramount Plus recently released a documentary called What the Parkland Doctors Saw, in which a majority of the doctors testified that they saw wounds in John Kennedy consistent with his being shot from the front and the back. Kimberly, nothing here has changed my mind. I don't think Lee Harvey Oswald is the shooter. Nothing established in these documents that we've seen so far proves that he is. And let's be honest, long before Donald Trump became president, the federal government's had 62 plus years to cleanse these documents and to reorganize them. So I'm not sure we will ever really know the entire truth.
And what do you make of Oswald's Mexico City trip? Does it suggest a conspiracy or unrelated, actions? What do you make of it?
I think he is being run. I mean, here's the other point. A man goes around the private airport, Byrd Field, in Texas, goes to various air charter companies and inquires about chartering a private plane to Cuba. But the problem is that when law enforcement show the proprietors of those individual air charter services a picture of the man, Lee Harvey Oswald, they say, oh no, that's not the guy who came in. That's the name he used, but that's not the man I saw. So I think Oswald is being run. What does he say when they bring him out in public? He says, I'm a patsy. I didn't shoot anyone. I think Oswald has been set up to take the fall. I do think he's an asset. We know from the documents that President Trump ordered, released in 2017, there's a 1099 from the IRS, from the FBI to Lee Harvey Oswald. So I think he's been set up to take the fall.
Well, and the JFK assassination, it really does still captivate so much public attention and interest. And this is after, when you think about it, Roger, like, wow, after 60 years. I mean, how did you get so involved and become such a renowned expert on the subject matter? And, what else do you think your book reveals that the public might be unaware of?
Well, I'll tell you how I got interested. It's really pretty simple. I worked, as you know, for President Nixon in his post-presidential years, and he was not very introspective. It was very hard to get him to talk about the past. He was very, very future oriented. But after he had a couple cocktails, well, you could ask him questions. And one day I said to him, Mr. President, may I ask you, who really killed John Kennedy? And he looked into his glass for a long time. He looked up to me and he said, well, let me put it to you this way. The Warren Commission was the biggest goddamn hoax in American history. I said, I'm sorry, sir, I'm not sure. What do you mean? He said, well, let me put it to you this way. Both Lyndon and I wanted to be president, but I wasn't willing to kill for it.
Right.
Now, very recently, our mutual friend Tucker Carlson released an audio tape from a conversation between President Richard Nixon and CI Director Helms, in which the Watergate scandal is beginning to engulf Nixon. He's beginning to pressure the CIA for help. And he says, a lot of dirty business went on over there at the CIA. I know a lot about it. And Helms plays dumb. He says, I'm not sure what you're talking about. And Nixon says, let me put it this way. I know who shot John. There it is, Kimberly, right there in indelible audio tape.
Wow, it's unbelievable. I mean, it's just so fascinating, and you just think like the truth will ultimately, come out and be exposed. Have you seen the story develop through each of the administrations and, from Nixon, Reagan, Bush, Clinton, all the rest? How did they approach the JFK case? What stands out?
I guess the most important thing here is to recognize that there is a kind of a straight line of history. So when he left the presidency, Dwight Eisenhower warned us about the military-industrial complex. The only difference today is we call them the deep state. So I really believe that the forces, the unelected bureaucrats, the permanent government that infect our national security apparatus, our Justice Department, our military, the think tanks, the defense contractors, the same people who killed John Kennedy, not people, but the same institutions, the same people who removed Richard Nixon in a silent coup because he was threatening to take power away from the CIA. These are the same people who tried to kill President Ronald Reagan. And by the way, Kimberly, there's never been any formal government report released on that attempted assassination. These are the same forces who tried to kill President Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania, the same forces who tried yet again to kill him in West Palm Beach, Florida. These are the same evil, dark forces who even today, I think, are behind the judicial tyranny. I call it judges gone wild, where they're attempting to usurp the executive authority of President Trump and ignore the mandate in the last election. My biggest single fear here remains the same, and that is people who tried to kill our president twice may try again.
Right.
Every night when I pray the rosary, and I do pray the rosary, my first prayer is for the safety of our president and his family.
Well, it has to be, because look what's happened. We had two, assassination attempts. People are, in a way that I think you and I have never seen historically, obsessed and just driven crazy. This Trump derangement syndrome is real. And it does make me very worried about him and about his safety. And I remember we had talked on previous shows how we were very concerned about, inauguration and getting him sworn into office. And I mean, look what he's done in, less than 100 days. It's nothing short of remarkable. It doesn't really surprise per se you and I, because we know the measure of the man and what he's capable of and his skill set. But I still remain fearful about that, every day. But like you, I turn to prayer, to God, to the rosary, to be able to really focus in a spiritual way on protecting and putting a white light around him, because it's actually very terrifying. I mean, when you have a transformative figure that can be, divisive, because some people they can't handle it. He's adored on one level so much, and the other side cannot handle it. And it's, it's something that gives me pause.
No, I think you're absolutely justified. I mean, it's interesting. If you think back to the period after January 6th, if you use the word fight in a speech, if you said in a speech, we need to fight for America,
right,
the left went out of their minds accusing you of advocating violence. Yet look at what's going on today. Look at the attacks on Tesla. Look at the open attacks of people urging others to burn down Tesla, facilities, showrooms, the advocacy of personal attacks, the swatting. I had Owen Schroyer on my show last night. This is horrifying to have the police. I've been through this. I got swatted by the pros.
Right.
To have the police swarm your home in the middle of the night, where you make one false move and you could be shot and killed.
No, it's very dangerous. It's very scary. Very scary.
It's terrifying, but that's the American left. They can't handle the fact that they lost the
American
election.
Left. Yeah.
They lost the election because their policies were a complete failure and a disaster for the country. They tried to bankrupt our president. They tried to keep him off the ballot in 50 states. They tried to throw him in jail for conjured up crimes that never existed. And he triumphed over all of that, all of it. He didn't just win a campaign. He won the greatest single comeback in American political history.
Biggest comeback in political or sports or cultural or, yeah.
And the amazing thing is, and you know this, there were times when he was angry, no doubt about it.
Especially in the beginning.
But there was never a time that he was dispirited or that he was discouraged or that he was defeated. There was never a time that he wasn't sure that in the end he would triumph. He's a force of nature. I mean, he's
incredible.
He really is. He's the toughest human being I've ever met.
I 1,000% agree. Yeah.
I work for some tough guys. I've never met anybody as tough as Donald Trump.
Okay, who's number two?
That's a tough question. I'd have to say Nixon. They put him through hell as well. If we'd had the internet in the 70s, I think he would have survived. But because we had a monolithic, myopic media, there were only 3 television networks, only national news
Myopic, that's a
magazines,
good word to describe it.
long gone. He had no platform to counterattack. Donald Trump is best when he's counterpunching. Nobody is a better counterpuncher in American politics than he is. And of course, the internet is his world. And then the brilliance, frankly, of going to alternative podcasts and alternative news sources to communicate to the people around the mainstream media. That was, I think, perhaps the most brilliant part of his campaign strategy.
And let's go back a little bit because I want to talk to you. Like you said, the permanent government also came for Nixon. You said he's probably number 2 spot, pound for pound, tough guy. What is the nexus between, Watergate and the JFK assassination? Are there any of the same, players, so to speak, involved?
Very definitely. So 4 of the Watergate burglars, we now know from declassified documents, were on the payroll of the CIA during the Watergate break-in, and 4 of them were also on the ground in Dealey Plaza the day John F. Kennedy got killed. This is why I say these are the same institutions. E. Howard Hunt, who was one of probably the most famous of the Watergate burglars, a veteran CIA operative, he confesses on his deathbed that yes, he was in Dallas the day Kennedy was killed, but that he was a backbencher. And he reaffirms, as I said in my book, The Man Who Killed Kennedy, The Case Against LBJ, that it was Lyndon Johnson who was calling the shots. So as soon as Nixon was elected president in 1969, he begins to try to get from the CIA all of the documents pertaining to Kennedy's murder. And they refuse to give them to him. He's the commander in chief, but they refuse to turn over the documents. This is why, as I say, in that famous conversation that Tucker Carlson aired, he says to the CIA director, "I know who shot John." This is why he was extraordinarily dangerous. And once he was reelected in 1972, he carried 49 states. I still think Trump's victory is a greater triumph because at that point, Nixon wasn't facing this tsunami of lawfare. He would post-election, but not pre-election, which is why Trump's triumph is even greater.
Is even greater.
He is at sword's point with the CIA, and he's threatening to dismantle them, which is why they removed him. And the same forces that are apoplectic today, hysterical today about the fact that Donald Trump is keeping his promises. I don't know why they're surprised. Everything he's doing, closing our borders, banning men from playing in women's sports, canceling these DEI policies that have destroyed our military. These aren't surprises. This is what he said he would do.
Right. It's unbelievable. It really is, just the parallels and, the symmetry there. And just it's interesting how history can repeat itself. But we're going to keep Trump safe. That's for sure. So my dear friend, Roger, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you? Because you are a busy guy. You're on the fabulous, number 1 WABC radio. You are on Rumble. You got the book. Pitch it all right here because our viewers love you.
I appreciate that, Kimberly. Go to stonezone.com, stonezone.com. That's the best launching part. Yes, I'm at WABC Radio. That's WABCradio.com every weekday now from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern. And then on the weekends from 3 to 5, again, WABCradio.com. And you can see it all over at Rumble as well.
Oh, so
always,
good.
It's great to be with you.
It's such a pleasure. Thank you so much, my friend. I always enjoy it. Such interesting conversation. A fascinating man who's lived a fascinating life in the front row of American political history. Roger Stone, thank you so much.
God bless you, Kimberly. Travel
you as
safe.
well. God bless. Roger Stone, thank you. And we'll continue following all of this. And in the meantime, be sure to check out the 1775 Coffee Company. We talk about it all the time. Don't compromise on taste, quality, or your values. And 1775 coffee is brewed to perfection, crafted with precision, and built on patriotism. The farm to cup process means there is quality, authenticity, and sustainability from start to finish. All the beans are ethically and exclusively single sourced. So please try 1775 coffee today. Go to 1775coffee.com/KG and you can get 15% off of your first order. In closing, remember that transparency is at the core of efficient and honest government. America First means not hiding the truth from the American people and standing for equal justice and accountability when it matters most. So thank you so much for joining us today. And please be sure to download the Rumble app, subscribe to my channel, turn on notifications, like and share, and tell all your friends so they know exactly where to find us. And please also be sure to follow me across all platforms: X, Truth Social, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Stay tuned to Rumble for all the very latest breaking news coverage. And don't miss Don Jr.'s big show at 6 p.m. Eastern. I hope you have a great rest of the day, and I'm looking forward to talking to you again very soon. God bless.